I just want to start off this video by addressing a misconception that people have about Christianity and Jesus, and it's the fact that Christianity is soft, and Jesus is soft, and like the teachings around it are soft. And we do have a problem in the 21st century of like men not going to church, and it's understandable. And maybe it's a topic for a different day. But men don't really want to go to church. I mean, you can see it in the numbers. Personally, I haven't seen it like when I go to church and stuff. The ratio seems fine to me. But I think there have been studies done, and there's a general decline in like the amount of men that are going to church, and it's understandable, right? Like men in general don't really want to like sit down for like an hour and listen to somebody else just talking to them, and like stand up and worship for like 15 minutes. I mean, I love doing it. I love singing praises to God. But in general, like when you think about like how the general like masculine temperament is, like guys want to be out there like doing stuff, right? Like if you call guys to like go in like go on a commission trip or whatever and go like build houses and stuff, and share the gospel, like you get a lot more. You do get a lot more men doing that than like sitting. But anyways, there's this misconception that Christianity and Jesus is soft, and it's because people don't understand. Like people have not read the Gospels. Like people don't read their Bible. Like and that's where all these misconceptions come from, right? Yes, okay, you're saved through faith alone. But again, I speak about this in every video. So if you watch every single one of my videos, I'm sorry, but like you're gonna keep hearing the same thing. Um, it's your faith that saves you, right? Your faith in Jesus Christ that saves you. But it's not as simple as just saying, "Oh, Jesus, I believe in Jesus. I believe in God as my Lord and Savior." Because it does say in the Bible, you believe that God exists. Or well done. Even the demons believe in God, right? So it's not just saying that. Like you need to actually live. You have true, sincere faith, right? So again, I want to make it clear: it is only your faith. Yeah, your faith alone, sola fide, your faith alone that saves you. But if you have true and sincere faith, right, and not the kind of faith where, the prophet Isaiah, and Jesus also quoted the prophet Isaiah saying, "Oh, they praise me with their lips, but their hearts are far away from me," right? You don't want the kind of like faith that's going to lead you to, Matthew 7, verse 23. You get to the gates of heaven and Jesus is like, "Depart from me, I never knew you." That's not faith. Saying you believe in God isn't faith. Faith is a true and sincere faith, like the kind of faith that you exhibit the fruits of the Spirit, like this is spoken about so much in the New Testament, right? The kind of faith where you take up your cross, because if you have true and sincere faith in Jesus Christ, you want to keep His commandments and follow His teachings, right? And that includes taking up your cross, which is the hardest thing anyone can do, right? And also doing like His two commandments, which are not an abolishment of the Ten Commandments. It's a condensation of the Ten Commandments. He's just condensed them into two, because if you love God as He has loved you, and you love your neighbor as you love yourself, you will cover the Ten Commandments to begin with, right? So I think that's an important aspect people need to understand. Following Jesus is not just this soft thing where you say, "Oh, I believe in Jesus, I'm going to heaven." No, like it is literally the hardest thing you can ever do. Like taking up your own cross means sacrificing, crucifying, right? Your false self, your current self, this image you've created of yourself, and putting forward the true self that has been created by God in God's image, right? And that means humbling yourself like a little kid. Jesus said, "If you're not like a little child, you're not getting into heaven," right? Humbling yourself. That is literally, it's the hardest thing you can do, right? Taking up your cross, loving God as He has loved you, and loving your neighbor as yourself. It's the hardest thing you can do. So Jesus and Christianity are not soft at all. If you're truly living in God's grace and you're truly saved, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, the hardest journey you can ever go on. So it is not soft. I just wanted to start off with that. But yeah, I wanted to go on how the morality of a man is built on biblical principles, right? So, protect, provide, and sacrifice, right? The kind of things you do for your family, those are built on biblical principles. And I mean, just if you think about what Jesus came to preach, and this is where again I go like Jesus is literally the most masculine man you can ever be, because he's God, right? The concept of sacrifice, like Jesus paid the ultimate sacrifice. Like He did the ultimate sacrifice. He was the perfect sacrifice, because if you think about how it worked in the Old Testament, and just around those times, it was like you did something wrong, right? Like you sinned. You need to go and sacrifice, right, to atone for your sins. And you needed like, I'm not sure exactly because I haven't studied too much into this, but I think the idea was you bring like your perfect lamb, like of all your lambs, right? You bring the perfect one, like the best one you have as a sacrifice to God, to be like, Lord, I'm repentant, I'm sorry, like here I'm sacrificing my best, right? And that's what God did for us, right? He went and He sacrificed the only perfect human to ever walk on this planet, right? 100% human, 100% God. The only perfect human to ever walk on this planet. The person who not only like least deserved that kind of death, the person who did not deserve any kind of death, right? He had to be the sacrifice for all of us who deserve that kind of death. That is the ultimate sacrifice. And sacrifice is built in the concept of biblical masculinity, right? When you have a family, you sacrifice for your family, and that means sacrificing everything, right? I think we can all kind of understand that, and again, that's why I'm saying that like biblical masculinity and just masculinity in general is built on biblical principles. The concept of sacrificing, the concept of providing, and then again the concept of protecting, right? Protecting people that are weaker than you, like people that you can help. And also another concept which, I mean, I guess I find it so interesting, how like the world today and like secularism and liberalism and atheism and all of that have basically taken this concept, and they've taken it as just like they've taken it for granted, right? And it's the concept of like all men are created equal, and it's like, bro, before Christianity, like if it wasn't for common law Christianity, that would not be a thing. Because if we were just, these humans that, just randomly evolved from like a pool of algae, like without like God, like making it happen, like it just happened randomly and there was no God. Like, where on earth did you get this concept of all men are created equal? Like, why would you care about somebody else? Look at how the animals live, right? They they're selfish. Like they eat the way they eat whatever they want. They do whatever they want. Like there's no consideration for other people, for other animals whatsoever. Because why would you, right? It's all about you. Like you need to survive, right? But because of the teachings, because we're created in God's image, right? This concept that we take for granted, right? That all men are created equal, right? It's an important value for us to instill. It is a biblical principle, and it's the reason we have the society we have today, right? So even like the atheists can talk however much they want about, it's just the natural thing to do. It's not natural if there was no God. But anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. Biblical masculinity, all men are created equals, is a principle we have to instill, and this thing actually like it has more implications than people think. Similar to like when Jesus says, all you have to do is have faith in me. There's more implications than people think. It is, yeah, you just have to have faith, but having that true and sincere faith is difficult. So I mentioned the two commandments, right? Of like, love God as He has loved you, and then love your neighbor as yourself, right? That is rooted in the all men are created equal thing, right? Because if you love your neighbor as yourself, you're acknowledging that this person has value and they have just as much value as I have, right? And again, when Jesus came and He was like, you've heard that, if you murder, you deserve punishment for that. And if you commit adultery, you deserve punishment for that. But I say to you, if you've been angry with a brother in your heart, you've committed murder. Or if you've lusted over a woman in your heart, you've committed adultery with her in your heart, right? That idea, again, comes from the same principle of, we all have value, right? So, murder, okay? Murder is like it's the ultimate, like, declaration of not caring about someone else's life. It's like your life does not matter at all. I'm going to kill you, right? I'm going to take it from you, right? And what Jesus was saying was that if you're angry with a brother in your heart, right, or you're angry with someone in your heart, right, that's a surface manifestation of not caring about someone else's life. And again, that's an important thing to realize when it comes to realizing that someone else has value. And similarly with the adultery thing, right? Adultery was, I mean, okay, it's wrong for so many reasons, but like the main thing is that you're taking away someone else's dignity, right? Like, yeah, that's what's happening. And when you lust or you covered somebody or you're in your heart, you are taking away, it's a surface manifestation of that, but again, you're taking away their dignity, and you're not recognizing like their value, they're valuable, right? Like that's a daughter of God, that's the son of God. You're not recognizing that this is a person that has value in the kingdom of God, right? And when you do that, like you're just kind of a surface manifestation of not caring about their life. But anyways, this concept of all men are created equal, and what Jesus said about taking up your own cross, and love me as I've loved you, love your neighbor as yourself, right? It's important for us to exhibit that in everything that we do, right? That's why being angry is not a masculine thing to do whatsoever, because as we've just mentioned, right, it's a surface manifestation of not caring about someone else's life, right? Like Jesus literally said, don't do it. You've sinned. And another thing is, like, even in the dating scene, right, like nowadays obviously you see all this degeneracy going on. We've spoken about how like lusting and not coveting is a surface manifestation of like not caring about that person's life or their dignity, right? Sleeping around is obviously, again, you're doing like the adultery. That is like the ultimate way of like not caring about their dignity and whatever. But recognizing that each person has value. Even something as simple as like watching porn. I was watching this one video. I mean, we're in the Christian community, so it's always going to be a topic, especially amongst men, right? The topic of like, when you're watching porn, right? Like this guy called Alan Parr. I'm sure you know his channel. It's called The Beat by Alan Parr. Yeah, it was a video about like lust and porn and stuff. And one of the things he said was like, it's important to realize like if you're watching porn, like that is like a daughter of God. That the producers and everything, they've taken away her dignity. She's taken away her dignity, but you, by watching and like lusting over it, again, back to what Jesus said, you're also taking away her dignity, and it's like you're not recognizing her value as a person, right? And I think obviously an easy way to kind of reframe this is like, imagine if that was like your daughter, like your sister or your mom or something. Like, you wouldn't want anyone taking away their dignity like that, right? Because you recognize their value, right? And I think that's what is important when it comes to biblical masculinity, to listen to what Jesus said. Every person has value, right? And it's important to treat people as such. And that's why, like watching porn is not a declaration of, it's not a declaration of I'm recognizing your value. It's a declaration of the opposite. I do not value you as a person, so I'm going to what's the word I'm looking for? Disgrace you? I don't know. I couldn't think of the word, but you get what I mean. And yeah, another concept is obviously a concept of like commitment, right? As men, like if you're following biblical masculinity, you should be, you commit, right? A biblical man, and I learned this from Fadi Bakum, right? A biblical man is committed to God honoring labor, right? Like you're committed to that, and obviously there's so many Bible verses, bro. Like Solomon was cooking in Proverbs. I think we all know that. There's so many verses. But why, sloth is a sin. You mustn't be lazy. That the man who loves sleep, will be poor, and all that stuff, right? You must commit to God honoring labor, right? Jesus, right? He committed. He made the ultimate commitment, the commitment of sacrifice. He committed his life to us, right? And he commands us to do the same thing, right? When he says, take up your own cross, right? Pick up your cross and follow me. That is a direct commandment, right? To commit to Jesus. And that's why I was saying again at the start about the faith thing, is that it's not just saying, you need to commit with all your heart. Love God with all your mind, heart, and soul. That's a commitment, right? So if you're a biblically masculine man, you are committed. And again, just to tie this back with what I was saying earlier about, recognizing the value in somebody else. Like if you're sleeping around, you're not recognizing the value in that person. And again, when you commit, I feel most people are, like if you're called to be married and stuff, or you're called to go have a family, you commit, right? You commit to your wife, you commit to your family. It's a commitment thing, right? If you're biblically masculine, you will commit. But yeah, and then the last one I want to speak about was that humility, right? Because again, we have this misconception, or this is just what happens when humans try and do things our own way, right? It's like this idea that like, if you're masculine, you're big, you're tough, you're loud, you're angry, which we said, being angry, sin, right? You're also kind of arrogant, and it's kind of like looked up to. Like you look at like someone like Andrew Tate, for example, like highly arrogant. Like a lot of the like rappers, highly arrogant, right? And all the music is just about like exalting themselves and like how good they are, right? Athletes, all these people that are just lifted up, right? It's all about me, and that's in direct violation of what Jesus calls us to do, right? When we being called to take up our own cross, it means sacrificing our false selves, right? It means sacrificing who we believe to be and why we believe to be valuable, laying that down, right? Sacrificing our old selves the way Jesus sacrificed himself on the cross, right? And putting forward the true self that has been created in God's image, right? Which means we must be humble, right? And this is the most important thing. And I don't know if there are any ladies watching this, but that's why it's double, triple important. It's mighty important, that you pick a biblically sound man, right? Not obviously because the Bible says do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers and all that stuff. It's obviously like a no-brainer that you should be with somebody that's got the same faith as you. But one of the most important reasons you should be with a biblically masculine man and a biblically inclined man is that a biblically masculine man and a biblically inclined man will be humble, right? They will not rely on their own strength, they will rely on God's strength, because they recognize that I, as a human, I'm fallible. Every man, like we all fall short, as Paul said. We all fall short, and we will all fail at some point. But the difference between a man that relies on his own strength and then a man that relies on Jesus' strength is that a man that relies on Jesus' strength and who has Christ as his firm foundation means that no matter what happens, you will be fine, because the faith is in Jesus' strength, not his own strength. Because if his faith is in his own strength, then you're gonna have problems, because at some point he's gonna fall short. But if his faith is in Jesus, it means no matter what tough times we go through, we'll be fine. I think this is another misconception people have of the Gospels, right? Of the good news of Jesus, is that like people think, and I think this is a misconception like Kanye had, and a lot of people around that sphere have, is that if I follow Jesus, right, then I won't have any troubles in life. All my troubles will go away and I'll be happy. No, in fact, Jesus preaches the opposite, right? He literally says, or not the opposite like the whole time, but he literally says, if you follow me, you will be persecuted, you will face troubles in this life, right? But take heart, for I have overcome the world. That's the good news, right? It's not that when you follow Jesus, there are not going to be any tough times, but it's that when you follow Jesus, you can take heart because he has overcome the world, right? And that's where it's important for us as men, right? If you're biblically masculine, you'll be humble because you understand that your strength is like this, bro. You can't even see it compared to Jesus' strength. And it's important to have Christ as your firm foundation, because what that means is that if I'm relying on my own strength and I put my value in my own strength, right, and I've not taken up my own cross, but I'm looking at myself like I'm valuable because I'm strong, I make a lot of money, I do this and that and that. If I'm putting my faith in that, someday that's going to crumble. Someday that's going to crumble. And if my faith is in that, that's not a firm foundation, I'm going to crumble. And then the family is going to face problems. But if Christ is my firm foundation, it means no matter what I go through, I can always rest in his strength, right? In his knowledge, in his wisdom, right? Because it far exceeds my own. But yeah, that's all I got for this video. You guys let me know what you think of the topic in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to join the community. And until next time, see you guys.